picture of this object on the wall in Australia. And according to the Aboriginals, I was down in Kariong in Australia, out in the bush, out in the outback. This was like a makeshift area where they put up hieroglyphs. On one side was Pleiadian glyphs, on the right side was Proto-Egyptian hieroglyphs, which have been verified by the Board of Antiquities of Egypt, which is pretty interesting. They date back to about 5,000 years ago, based on the lectins and the patina inside the cracks and crevices of the actual glyphs. You can date them 5,000 years. 5,000 years ago, Egyptians were in Australia visiting the Aboriginals. Now, what's interesting is on the side that the glyphs are Pleiadian, nobody to date on this planet has deciphered those glyphs yet. In those glyphs is this massive, what looks like a mothership with little ships coming out. The Aboriginal people say that was the Pleiadians, and those are Pleiadian glyphs, and that the Pleiadians brought them to Earth. That's the Aboriginals from Australia handed down verbal history. That's not Billy Carson saying that. It's the Aboriginal elders and what they teach themselves and their kids, generation after generation. They say they were the first seeded people on this planet, and that this represents one of the motherships that drops off little UFOs or little probes coming out. Pretty interesting based on the subject line of the story that was drafted by Avi Loeb of the potential of a mothership out there with these little ships or probes coming out of it. I like to link things to the ancient past. This UFO is 5,000 years old. Here's another photo that I took personally with my phone. This is the side with the Pleiadian glyphs, the same side that UFO is on, right? Pretty interesting. And then the other side is the Proto-Egyptian glyphs in this area. These can be deciphered. It talks about a story of two brothers. It talks about a story of two brothers that left Egypt and went to Australia to sit with the Aboriginal elders. Upon landing there on the shore, one of the brothers got bit by a snake. This is what the Egyptian hieroglyphs actually say. He got bit by a snake and he died. The other brother tried to save him. He couldn't save him. He then took the body and he put it on this giant stone, which is right behind that area where you saw the glyphs, and he mummified his body according to the hieroglyphs. This is what he wrote. That stone is still there. He then took his brother back to Egypt. Now, I heard about this story way back in around 2011, 2012. What was interesting, when I went to Egypt in 2014, at one of the temples, the story of the two brothers returning from Australia, one with the dead body, one of the brothers were dead. It shocked me and stunned me, and I knew I had to get out to the outback, which I eventually did. And it was the beginning of 2020, right before the lockdown happened. In fact, as I was taking off to come home, they were locking the country down. I would have been stuck there for 3 months. That would have been horrible. But anyway, I made it there. I got it done. I got to the place that I wanted to see. I got to explore the outback. I got to go for a walkabout and the whole good works. And it was an amazing sight, an amazing experience. But again, the confirmation that Egyptians had been visiting the Aboriginals, and according to the hieroglyphs, to gain knowledge. There was a knowledge exchange going on between the Egyptians and the Aboriginal people in ancient times, thousands of years ago. It only stopped about 500 years ago, according to the Aboriginal elders. They told me because at one point, a group came over and they started touching the sacred stones, and one of them stole 2 of the sacred stones. And because of that, they were banished from ever coming back. And that ended the back and forth communication between the Egyptians and the Aboriginals. You're not going to get this kind of stuff in school. You're not going to get this kind of knowledge in school or college. You're just not going to get it, right? Now, there was another ship that came through called Oumuamua. I call it a ship because I don't believe that this is a comet or an asteroid. Oumuamua came through here a few years ago, and from my understanding of orbital mechanics, it used a gravitational assist to accelerate itself through our solar system and back out into interstellar space. And so my argument for this, I'll show it. I'll present my argument for that tonight in this pop-up podcast. But Avi Loeb, the same person that wrote the draft paper about the mothership, also wrote about Oumuamua. Oumuamua is a Hawaiian name that was given to this object, this anomaly, as I believe it was discovered from an observatory out of Hawaii. Maybe that's why they gave it the name Oumuamua. The shape of the object is not consistent with a comet or an asteroid. The flight path is not consistent with a comet or asteroid. The angle of attack, in other words, the angle that it took toward our sun, towards the inner planets, avoiding collisions with all planets and moons in our solar system, also didn't fall through with it. I'll talk about that in a second, Neil. And so I personally came to the hypothesis that this could be an ancient space relic. It could be a derelict craft of some type, or it could be on a craft that's functioning properly and on some type of interstellar observation mission. In other words, an advanced race of beings light years away. It would make sense that instead of traveling so many light years all the time and risking your life and risking radiation and risking going into hibernation and not waking up and everything else, if you don't have the capability of faster than light travel at a very consistent pace, it would make sense to me as an advanced race is to create a probe that can travel great distances on a consistent basis, and a probe that can travel through multiple star systems that we have identified as potentially harboring life. And what I would do with that space probe is I would have it use a quantum entanglement communications device so that it could transmit information in real time faster than the speed of light. It can transmit at the speed of thought back to home base, no matter where we are in the universe. And we can collect data on what it's seeing, what it's finding, and what it's learning about the universe itself as it passes through these habitable regions. And so that's my theory about it. Avi Loeb had the same idea, not my specific idea, but that this, according to him, didn't fit the characteristics of an actual comet or asteroid, and that more like fit the specs of an actual spacecraft. All right. And so it's a hypothetical of the craft right here. It could have built up a lot of debris and dust on it over millennia as it's been flying through interstellar space and going from solar system to solar system, right? Pretty interesting stuff. And so this is just an actual concept, right? And so RJ says, what do you think about people who have dyslexia? I think they're brilliant people. I mean, a lot of people have dyslexia. It's just a different way that their brain is processing information. If you think about it, it's like a superpower. Your brain processes things totally different than the average person, which means you have the capability of seeing things totally differently as well. All right. Kina Shiva, live in Vegas. Have you saved my life? And now my soul doesn't live in my body. Body lives in my soul. I am everything. Okay, thank you, LA. Appreciate it. La or either LA. She says that she's been alchemically or spiritually converted. And from the knowledge and the wisdom that's been put out on this channel. So I appreciate you and thank you for the donation. So this is just a concept image here of Oumuamua if it wasn't full of dust and debris on the outside, right? There's a lot of dust and debris in space, and if you're traveling for thousands of years, no way to clean it off, you could end up looking like this. This is just a concept image though. So let's look again at another paper written by Avi Loeb on harvard.edu. And the link there to the source is at the top of the image. On the possibility of an artificial origin of Oumuamua, Avi Loeb, right? Astronomy Department, Harvard University. He says, let me blow this up so I can see it a little easier. The first large interstellar object discovered near Earth by the Pan-STARRS telescope, Oumuamua, showed half a dozen anomalies. So it had, it had half a dozen anomalies on it. Okay, so in other words, when they look at the image of this object closely, they're seeing things on it that don't belong there. It shouldn't be considered a stone or a rock or debris. It's something else. So the first interstellar object discovered near Earth by a Pan-STARRS telescope, Oumuamua, showed half a dozen anomalies relative to comets or asteroids in the solar system. In other words, as they compared it to other comets and asteroids, it didn't match. All natural origin interpretations of Oumuamua anomalies contemplated objects of a type never seen before, such as a porous cloud of dust particles, tidal disruption fragment, or exotic icebergs. It didn't match any of that. made of pure hydrogen or pure nitrogen. Each of these natural origin models has major quantitative shortcomings, and so the possibility of an artificial origin for Oumuamua must be considered. Artificial origin. They're saying it doesn't match natural, it must be artificial, based on scientific observation by real scientists. All right? Oumuamua's anomaly suggests that it might have been a thin craft with a large area per unit mass, pushed by the reflection of sunlight, sharing qualities of the thin aircraft 2020 SO, which is another object launched by NASA in 1966. They launched an object in 1966, which used a solar acceleration array, where you let the charged particles from the sun push against your craft and create acceleration. It's like a solar sail. And they're saying that this object is using the same exact type of technology that they experimented with in 1960. Pretty interesting, all right? Pretty interesting stuff there. And this is why I love astrophysics, and this is why I love science. This is why I love studying this kind of stuff. Orbital mechanics, I dig into this kind of stuff, and I research it and read it nonstop because it's so fascinating, right? It's really so fascinating. And so it's one of these things that it's just mind-blowing, the concept that we could have had a visit from an interstellar object created by an alien race, and it passed right by us a few years ago. And a lot of scientists cried out and said, hey, this thing is not organic, it's real, it's intelligently made. And everybody just kept going to work and punching their time clocks because they have to pay their bills. We just ignored it and let it go right by. Could it be that Ace says, could it be that on the surface of this ship, there could be buffer material covering it in case of collisions? That's true too. That's a great observation. It could have material on it that will protect it from collisions with space dust and space debris. Absolutely. Trying to get to all of these. Thank you, Kevin Hawkins. Red Pill Rossi, do you think Oumuamua have anything to do with the Black Knight satellite? Great question. I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that very shortly. I'll be answering that question very shortly, as I will also show a clip of the Black Knight and talk a little bit about it. All right. Enlightened Society, hey Billy, sending love and support for all the information you provide. Who are the people of ancient people of America? Did they have record of aliens visiting, and how are Blacks in America today related to these people? Great question. So when you look at Christopher Columbus's log, and I'm going to get off track a little bit for this question because I think it's a great question. Look at Christopher Columbus's log. You discover that, of course, he said he did not discover America. He actually got completely lost. This is not based off of my ideas or concepts. It's based off of his own logs. He actually thought he ended up in a region of India based on his tracking. He was way off. That's why he called the people of the islands that he ran into Indians. The indigenous people that he found there, he called them Indians because he thought he had rounded about some kind of weird way and ended back up in India. And we still use the word Indian till this very day, even though Indians don't exist in America. And it's a very offensive thing to call an indigenous American an Indian. They don't like that. Okay, they don't like it at all. And so it's like misappropriating their, the species, or the race that they are, or I don't even use race, but who they are. Pretty interesting. So what we have found out was that if you go into Mexico, which is where I'm headed in a few short weeks, I'm going to go do a film part of my series, my new TV series for Forbidden Knowledge TV called Annunaki History. And I'm filming some on-site scenes in Mexico at Teotihuacan, at Tulum, Tula, and also down into Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula. Why do I bring this up with this question? In Africa, you have Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. I wrote about him in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. He ruled over the land of Kemet for 16,000 years in ancient times. Not according to me, according to the ancient Egyptians' records. And of course, he authored the Emerald Tablets. Throughout Africa, he had many names. He was Thoth. He was also known as Tahuti, right? And so when that name Tahuti with the T, when you go and break down Teotihuacan, you find out the root of the word, and the breakdown of the word is Tahuti City. or the city of Tahuti is the way it breaks down. And so Teotihuacan is actually Tahuti's city. So in the Sumerian tablets, you find that Thoth had left out of Kemet, the land of Kem. He leaves and he takes several Olmecs with him to Africa, to Mesoamerica, which is now Mexico, Mesoamerica, but now it's changed to Mexico, which is the Americas, to build a civilization there. He builds Teotihuacan, which is a mirror, a copy of Giza that's located in Mexico. The three pyramids are perfectly aligned with the Orion. The base of the Pyramid of the Sun is the exact size of the base of the pyramid, the Great Pyramid at Giza, and so forth and so on. I mean, I can go on and on with all the similarities. But the reason why is because he was the architect. He's the one that built that. And so to answer your question, you find that there were people, he brought the Olmecs with him. He brought Black people with him to Mesoamerica to kickstart an entire new civilization. They created a breakaway civilization over there. They broke away and created that. There have been indigenous Africans living throughout the North and South Americas for generations, for eons, for thousands of years, right? And so not everybody that was brought here on a ship. There were some people already here, all right? All right, so now, when I say on a ship, I'm talking about slave ships. Not all slaves that came here came on slave ships. There were already Black people here when they arrived. Now, all right, let me get back to this here. So let's talk about this again. So Avi Loeb does a great job talking about Oumuamua and the potential, him and his team, the potential that they believe it's really an artificially designed craft using a solar sail to project itself through the solar system and beyond into intergalactic space. It came from outside of our solar system. It didn't collide with the Oort cloud. Now, the Oort cloud is a very dangerous place. On the edge, on the far, far edges of our solar system, there's something called an Oort cloud. This Oort cloud is a lot of debris, the leftover debris from the creation of the solar system itself. This debris is gigantic, massive stones that used to be pieces of planets that have collided and broken off pieces of things that didn't make it into planets and planetlets and microplanets and all kind of ice and everything else. And they're shifting and moving in this consistent spin around our solar system and bumping each other. Sometimes some get thrown into intergalactic space, some get thrown towards our sun. This thing had to navigate through the Oort cloud to get to the solar system. And then it had to navigate through the solar system without impacting anything, and so it can get to our sun. And what did it do when it got to our sun? It used our sun as a gravitational assist. Now, this is very important. When you begin to study orbital mechanics, you begin to realize and learn about the ways that you can save fuel, right? You can save a lot of fuel by utilizing the gravity of a planet or a sun to project the object back out into space. And so we're going to talk about that for a minute. Gravitational assist. In orbital mechanics and aerospace engineering, in orbital mechanics and aerospace engineering, a gravitational slingshot, gravity assist maneuver, or swing by is the use of the relative movement of gravity of a planet or star, or other astronomical object, which could be a star, to alter the path and the speed of the spacecraft, typically to save propellant and to reduce expense. See? Because when you are operating in deep space, you can't take all the fuel with you if you don't have super advanced technology. If you have a craft that's not using chemical propellant, you're fine. But once you bring chemical propellant on board, the more fuel you have, the more fuel you'll need to accelerate. You can't avoid the laws of physics. And so when you're going into deep space missions, it's best to take as less fuel as you possibly can, and also then to create gravitational assist scenarios so that you can slingshot your craft where you want it to go by utilizing free energy from planets and stars. So gravity assist can be used to accelerate spacecraft, that is to increase or decrease its speed or redirect its path. The assist is provided by the motion of the gravitating body as it pulls on the craft. Any gain or loss of kinetic energy and linear momentum by passing the spacecraft is correspondingly lost or gained by the gravitational body in accordance with Newton's third law. The gravity assist maneuver was first used in 1959 when the Soviet Union probe Luna 3 photographed the far side of Earth's moon, and it was used by the interplanetary probes Mariner 10 and onward, including the Voyager missions, which have now